Speaking of making the work, Squatic finally making some inroads here on behalf of.
Absolutely gets in the back. Shadows.
Oh my
Oh,
god. Hello?
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 Uh-oh.
Hello?
Blur? Hello?
I don't think this time. They're not gonna get back in touch. Nobody's noticed. No.
33% to a Bob, but Helios in with 4 ultimates of their own. This next fight.
They can follow up a little bit of aggression. This protect could be used. I think this is everybody. He does!
Of anti-nade came through, and as much as we saw, man, this is dirty. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Altian popping it on everyone. Long spawns in overtime.
Wow.
Actually. It looks like look at Killer Talks. Oh my god! Look at triple. Look at these different. I need coming out. Sevren try and catch up with the. Let's get it. Oh, there's a tip.
All right, it's Peach. That's what Peach looks like, everybody. What's up,
Hey.
everyone? My name is Sun Phoenix, and welcome back to the Pride Cup, our grand finals. All of you have been sticking around throughout this weekend. It's been a lot of fun. This is the culmination. As I said before, my name is Sun Phoenix, and I'm joined, as you can see, by Naori Mizuki. Welcome back.
Good to be back. Really excited. Thank you for having me for the grand final. Pretty stoked to have been asked to cast this. I think it's a wonderful initiative taken by COWSA here. Great idea to just get a little bit of awareness out there, spread the love a little bit, and yeah, happy to be involved.
Absolutely, and we're happy to have you here. Now, as I mentioned, this is the grand finals of the Pride Cup. And what is the Pride Cup? Let me just run you through that again. If you guys have been around, you know what I'm talking about. But for anybody who's joining us for the first time, let me run you through it. Pride Cup is just a PUGs tournament, essentially, where people sign up. You can sign up in groups of 1, 2, or 3, join based on your SR, and we set you up in teams based on your SR. So the teams are all evenly balanced in terms of SR, but of course you'd have a little bit of flux within the teams and between the teams. But for the most part, these are pretty balanced, but these are not pre-made teams. These teams won't have seen each other until maybe a day or two before Friday, which is when our tournament started. So not the world's most synergistic teams, but that's a challenge in itself that these teams have overcome. And the two teams before us today are the teams that overcame it best. So Nori, why don't you introduce us to our first team?
As you guys should know by now, this is the GrantHindenburgs versus Sevren 11. Again, some fantastic naming conventions by our players. Anyway, moving swiftly along. So, GrantHindenburgs, of course, the first person whose name you should recognize there is Grant Hines. Very prominent streamer and content creator in the South African scene. Really has his name out there, really involved. And he's going to be on the DPS role for us today. Of course, he doesn't actually play in the scene. He's not on a team. So that's going to be a little bit of a... Not too sure how that one's going to go because everybody on the other team
he made it this
in the
far,
team.
right?
You have a point, but is that like hard carry or is he just like the diamond in the rough that no one ever expected? Let's find out. As for the rest of the
Grant
roster...
Hines incoming.
Indeed. As for the rest of the roster, we've got Soul Eater rounding out the DPS lineup, and he's currently playing on overtime. Take a look at that tank line. Sully, one of the runners-up for that World Cup team last year. Fantastic tank player, currently playing for 2CP. Going to be backed up by Bubbles, who's currently playing for Risen. And to round out the roster, we're going to have Vertigo and Zlade on the supports, both also from that 2CP, one of the top-tier teams in South Africa at the moment. So it's no surprise that this team has gotten so far with such a stellar lineup.
Absolutely, and I take this moment just to remind you guys that these are balanced by SR, so these two teams are equally matched, at least in that sense. So as we move over to our second team, it is of course going to be Sevren 11, headed up as you'd expect by the man himself, Sevren, aka Cyber Ginger. I've been told. I've been calling him Cyber Ginger, which apparently they've been laughing at me for, so thanks. He's of course, by his side, you'll have Mito on the other DPS. The Torbjorn main himself, main tank, former main tank of Goliath Gaming, and before that, DPS of the championship-winning Goliath Gaming squad. So, pretty renowned player in his own right, of course. Then we have a whole lot of people from Leiden. Now, just because you're on Leiden doesn't mean we know what you look like, because that squad has, 24 plus players on it. So it is going to be Babs and Darkstar side by side on the tanks, and we're going to have Astros aka Bluetooth on the main support role, and then we've got Shadows as well rounding out the roster quite nicely from Rage Quit Odyssey. So that's our 7-11 squad. These two teams, obviously having made it this far, have had a very successful run in the tournament, and both of them, funnily enough, didn't actually top out their groups. It was Lunatic Hello and Need for Feed who ended up topping out the respective groups. But at the end of the day, it's second place, the runners-up, who've found their way into the grand finals. And recent match, 7-11, as you guys just saw on stream, they had a pretty dominant performance, it has to be said, against Need for Feed, who went undefeated through the group stage. And the GrantHindenburgs, if you guys were catching up on Grant Hines' stream, and he is streaming this match as well, they beat Lunatic Hello 3-1. So these teams have a slightly different run through to this match, but both pretty strong. This is the grand final, so this should be the tippy top of PUGs tier play.
Absolutely. I mean, if you just take a look at their run, not looking at maps, but just matches, both of these teams have only lost one match throughout their run in this tournament. So as you say, this is going to be pretty tip top for a PUGs team. It looks like our first map of the evening is going to be Lijiang Tower. Now, for those who aren't aware, this is a best of 7. So if you haven't yet, grab some snacks, make a quick cup of coffee or whatever. I think we're going to be here in for the long haul. So first map of the evening is going to be Lijiang Tower, control map. And we always get some interesting results on control because, as I always say, it's one of those maps where your individual skill can really shine a lot brighter than on the other maps, where that coordination tends to become a little bit more important. So we always get like really interesting results here, and then it starts to even itself out as the maps carry on. So curious to see how these teams are going to do on Lijiang Tower, and of course one of those maps where you can play a lot of interesting compositions. I mean, we've seen a lot of dive, we've seen a lot of that brawl composition, and the great thing about the current state of Overwatch is that there isn't really like a solid meta. You can look back over the past couple of years and you can kind of distinguish between this was dive meta, this was moth meta, this was goats meta. But now we're in this really sweet spot where every tank is viable depending on what map you're playing, what composition you're playing. Very few DPS are kind of throwaway that you kind of trolling if you play them. You know, Torbjorn used to fit that slot. Now, I mean, he gets played all the time. He gets so much value. And even support players, there's very few times where you could look at a support and go, why on earth are they playing that support?
Yeah.
So we're in a really great spot at the moment, and it breeds a lot of creativity, especially from the South African scene. I think we are one of the most creative scenes for the Overwatch community. So pretty excited to see what they're going to throw at us.
Absolutely. Creative is a nice euphemism for a couple of things, I think, potentially. But I definitely agree. I love watching South African plays.
Do them like that, son. Come on.
Yeah, but I keep people humble, you know. If I don't do it, who's going to do it? So we are jumping into control center here now, where you tend to see a lot of brawl on this map. So I think we're going to see that Ryan Zario or double shield type of stuff, or do you think these teams are going to get creative as you suggest they might?
Well, every now and then I see something like a Winston ball and a Junkrat just to like kind of throw things, you know, into the loop. But more likely than not, we're going to be seeing that double shield that we do tend to see so often. Immediately I'm proven right by at least one of the teams. GrantHindenburgs going to be running that Orisa and the Reinhardt. But as you mentioned, the Reinhardt and Zarya coming through here from Sevren 11. And, well, there's a Junkrat. And do you know what? It can actually work out really well. It's that ground Pharah. Pharah doesn't get a ton of use because of the really low ceilings, but you want to have that spam damage. So you couple that with the Hanzo. That is a ton of damage being output. On the other side, however, we've got a Mei that can really abuse some of these small choke points, try and wall off one of the enemy players and take advantage of that. And, of course, tons of spam damage from the Ashe. I think this is going to be a pretty spicy matchup.
Let's hope so, ladies and gentlemen. This is the finals of the Pride Cup. Let's see how these teams bring it to each other. Great start from Bubbles there. Gets the pin onto Darkstar and gets rid of him straight away. Babs on that, sorry, putting the damage through as well. Oh, Sully, they're going down. Immediately cracked back, coming out of 7-11 here, and they're going to pick up a quick triple after a difficult start to that team fight and secure themselves the first cap here on Control Center, a map where it is critical to get a good start.
Very well played there from 7-11. They got walled off. They managed to break through the wall, and despite it becoming a very small choke and losing their Reinhardt, better utilization of their cooldowns, keeping their team alive, managed to funnel through it and get those nice early 3k picks just to take early control of the point here. Now holding close, knowing they have the Mei wall, gonna try and get an early pick off and stall this point out.
Oh, the Junkrat was so good at this part of the map, and you see immediately getting that pick, but Bubbles finds one of his own. This Riptide, though, might spell the end of any aspirations for a push that GrantHindenburgs have, and with Sully going down, I think we're going to be seeing a little bit of more time coming off the clock here for 7-11.
Way too much spam here from 7-11. GrantHindenburgs not able to put up, not able to deal with it super effectively. They do have... Yeah, they've got an Earth Shatter and a Coalescence. Going to start things off with the Cole, try and make an in.
They are indeed 93% up on Babs' ulti here. If he can get that down, that might spell the end of this push once again for the GrantHindenburgs. He's got it now. He commits it straight away. The Dragon Strike follow-up from Colby Ginger here. Straight through, picks up a doubles laid. The only person on his team to pick up anything, but it's not going to be enough to secure them a team fight win. There's a Grant Hines in the background, though. Is he going to 1v6 the whole of 7-11? Can he take down Colby Ginger, or is this an ill-fated attempt? He's still alive. A late death. Maybe not what they were looking for, but you've got to appreciate the zeal.
You admire the tenacity, but it is a late stall, as you say. Now, they are engaging without him, but they're running straight into a rally from the 7-11s, which could prove very dangerous for them.
Absolutely, it could. Bubbles might need to be the savior of his team once again here. We saw him perform so well on this map last night. We'll have to see if he can do the same here. The Shadow goes down, doesn't really find anything though. And 7-11 lighting up the kill feed, picking up 4 kills. Bob on the pointer, courtesy of Grant Hines, but Bubbles or Nito will find a kill onto Sully with the Riptide as well. The Bob hits the deck, and 7-11 secure themselves an easy first point on Lijiang Tower.
What's interesting to note is that 2 fights back, they used a ton of ultimates. We saw the Graviton Surge, the the dragons, Hanzo's Dragon Strike, and they used the Earth Shatter as well. They really overcommitted. So coming into that last fight, they didn't have a heck of a lot to work with, but they staggered out Grant Hines, and that was massive. For him to not be able to get back to his team, and for the team to have to engage 5v6 because they knew that the clock was running out. A bit of a misplay from Grant, but we saw the 7-Elevens take really good advantage of that misplay and use it to their favor. Now, as we move over onto our second map, some interesting swap-ups here. Not seeing the Symmetra that we've become so used to, but we are seeing a little bit of a pharmacy. Going to be running that into Grant Hines' Widow. Oh!
That was a close one. Almost gets taken down there by Colby Ginger. This is a Grant Hines special, by the way. Ash and Widowmaker. If you see him run anything else, I'll be shocked. I'll be absolutely surprised because he doesn't seem to do anything else, and he's making short work of Mito here potentially. Widow, the perfect counter to the Pharah if she can find the angle she needs to, but unfortunately it is 7-11 on the point here. GrantHindenburgs going to have to find themselves a way to move through the double shield composition that they're running into, and so far they're struggling to find the value. Sully does take a step forward here, Bubbles does the same. They're just pumping the damage through for now, looking for an angle, looking for a chink in the 7-11 armor, and they might just have found one as Babs goes down, but he will be brought back to the health by Liz. No, he won't. Grant Hines putting in the work to get rid of that Mercy before she can find the resurrection. Mito now going to try and get on top of Grant Hines, as we see here on the point. Oh, I spoke too soon, and the flow is interrupted here as there is a pause that comes out, but looking so good for the GrantHindenburgs there, Sam, but somehow the 7-Elevens bring it on back.
Oh, well, it's quite unfortunate because we saw some really nice pickoffs, and as you mentioned, the Mercy going down as well. So that was a healer out of the way. And they slowly started to make their way onto point, get those all-important pickoffs, and now Mito just drops from the sky. Something really important to notice in the kill feed there, Colby Ginger. So you nearly confused me with your nonsense.
It still looks like Ginger. In my head, I'm still saying
it does a
Ginger
little bit. That's the worst part. Colby Ginger takes down the immortality field before ulting, and that is so important. Making sure, knowing that that ability is no longer in play and cannot protect the enemy team from whatever it is you want to throw at them. And of course, he communicates that Lamp is down, and he throws out his Dragon Strike. Mito's like, all right, well, cool, my time to shine. Because also important to note is that the Dragon takes out Slade as well, so that's healing out of the fight. Really good communication there between these players. Really well spotted from Mito to realize that this was the perfect opportunity to swoop down from above and get that nice little 2K with the barrage off the back of taking down Vertigo. Both supports out of the way. And might I add, Vertigo had Coalescence.
Yes, so you speak about Mito and Colby Ginger. Just to remind you guys, Colby Ginger is the man himself, Sevren. So, don't call me out every time. Otherwise, you're just going to be calling me out all cast long because I'm going to make that mistake over and over again. Anyways, Colby Ginger and Mito. Colby Ginger is Sevren. Been teammates for a long time now. They were teammates on Goliath Gaming. They were teammates on the second iteration of Goliath Gaming, and they're teammates on Snorlax as well in that main tank and off tank role. So these guys are used to synergizing with each other and getting rid of the lamp like that and making the space for me to get that big barrage like you mentioned. I think quite a sign of that. On the other side as well, though, or rather, their tanks are also as synergized, Babs and Darkstar, as members of Leiden, as I mentioned. So a lot of built-in synergy on 7-11, and that could prove key as we move throughout this matchup.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Grant Hines, we've got 3 players from 2CP. So that's also, there's a lot that goes into that, and you can really see how it starts to come through. And it was really unfortunate of Vertigo to go down there, because a Coalescence might have actually been enough to keep the tanks alive, to keep the point contested, to keep it rolling. So really sad to have seen him go down there and unfortunately lose out, because as we noted, it really looked like they were going to turn the fight in their favor. And the super unfortunate thing here for the GrantHindenburgs, of course, having one of their tanks disconnect means that they've lost all ult charge that he would have had. So he's going to come back into this game with nothing to work with. It is a male. Wait, is it male bubbles or female bubbles? I can't remember.
This is Guy bubbles. This is Risen bubbles, not
his ultimate. Not going to have his ultimate.
Yes, so unfortunately he was playing the Reinhardt, and we saw him yesterday, as I mentioned earlier. He performed so well on this specific point as well, on that Reinhardt, making big plays for his team, and was a large part of them actually qualifying for the grand finals. So looking towards a standout performance, but losing all of his outcharge here before his first ultimate is a pretty bad way to start, you'd have to say. Hopefully we do get him back in here. We are just waiting for that.
Apparently his power's out. He's gone outside to
Oh.
start the generator. Like that's
Okay.
how you know it's a South African game of Overwatch, when you gotta run out to quickly start the generator.
Oh my god, that is so true. In many ways, we can be thankful that we live in a country where our power situation is run by ESCOM, because you wouldn't have a generator in most places, I don't think. And Bubbles
Yeah.
prepared, thanks in small. So thank you, ESCOM, guys, in chat. That's
Thank
the
you
only
for
reason
forcing
Bubbles
us
can
to be
play.
prepared.
Exactly. Now, lots of people have been having power issues all over the country. I'm not exactly sure what the causes of that. I know Blur and
ESCOM?
M obviously. No, it's not ESCOM, because it might be. But it's not load shedding as we jump back into the action here, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't miss much. We're just going to see Mito clean up GrantHindenburgs as they look to approach another team fight here.
Yeah, that 2K turned into a 3K as the pause unlocked, and we saw Soli to
Yeah.
go down as well. Now GrantHindenburg's going to be coming in with, unfortunately, only 3 ultimates, as Grant will have the sights fairly soon, and not the 4 that they would have wanted, Earthshatter being completely taken away from them. But the Sevren 11s have just lost their Moira, and all they have is an Earthshatter. If he can get a big one, it'll be enough. But if he can't, well...
Well, it goes without saying what the outcome will be there. Shadows, it brings him back to life though, so it's all up to even. But there we go, another pick for the GrantHindenburgs. Sully doing the work for his team here. Can they find any more, or will this be another crackback? That's a good shield block onto the Shadow. Bubbles not able to find, or Bubbles does find a kill, sorry, onto the enemy Reinhardt. Now charging through onto the Vertigo, onto the Moira. Vertigo picks up a double here, and the GrantHindenburgs finally able to get themselves set up on point.
Great play from the GrantHindenburgs, actually. Blocking that Earthshatter, getting the Reinhardt out of the way. Now, they did use both support ultimates, but they funneled the Coalescence through the amplification matrix. So that is a ton of damage onto the
Is that
enemy
how it
team.
works?
Even if it... I'm pretty sure it does. So that's a lot of damage being output, and even if it doesn't, I mean, Coalescence in an itty-bitty room, even if it's not getting those final blows, it's definitely gonna help. But Grant going down, gonna force out the Blizzard here and see if they can get some value.
Both DPS taken down, actually. The Blizzard, as you say, does come out, but doesn't get the value they needed to. But what does get the value is the Dragon Strike from Sevren here. He takes down 2, picks up a 3rd with the bow, and that's going to spell the end of that defense for the GrantHindenburgs as we take a look at an action replay.
Oh, that was one little ultimate that had to be used there in that fight. It was the Dragon Strike, and it was all they needed to clean up. But we are back in the action here with the Gravitic Flux to try and get the ball rolling again.
Yeah, good start here. Babs finds the pick onto the man himself. Grant Hines won't be contributing to this fight, unfortunately. Charged through from Bubbles. Mito, though, is sitting with his ulti. That Shadow doesn't find what it needs to, and Bubbles goes down. Mito commits his ultimate. Oh, that's a beautiful direct hit onto Sully as well. The ball not going to contribute anything else in this match. Potentially Darkstar dropping nice and low, but maybe I spoke too soon as the GrantHindenburgs work their way back in. A double kill for Grant Hines, putting his team on his back. The namesake himself gonna secure the team fight win for the GrantHindenburgs.
He's obviously saying in team chat, and this is why the team is named after me. Back in the mix there.
I hope you.
You know what? I would.
Oh, wow.
Well, we'll take a look at this ult economy now as we move into last fight territory. If the 7-11s win this next fight, they will win this map, and they're going to be coming in here with the Valkyrie, and pretty soon yet another Earthshatter, not to mention a Dragon Strike just on the horizon, looking very good here to turn this around as the GrantHindenburgs, they're only really going to have the Wrecking Ball mines to work with, nothing else to speak of. It's not going to be pretty if those ultimates don't go off.
That's true, and they've got a flanking Farah here to deal with as well. Colby Ginger puts the Dragon Strike through, put that up to 3 for him, as that's his 3rd double kill at least. Dragon Strike, can he find any more? Does he need to, or is Mito just going to clean things up for the GrantHindenburgs? Oh, 7-11, sorry. Sully tries to get in there, but the Shadow from Darkstar going to make sure he doesn't get any value, isn't able to stall on that ball, and the GrantHindenburgs, unfortunately, not able to take the first map. The 7-11 stamped their authority on proceedings.
This was a little bit unfortunate. Like I mentioned, 7-Eleven's coming into that last fight there with quite a few ultimates. They played the previous fight quite well. They knew that they could lose it. They could stand to lose it. They drew out a couple of ultimates. They only really used the Dragon Strike. And as they came in for the next fight, they had a ton of ultimates at their disposal. And they played it exceptionally well. They knew that they just needed to play a little bit slowly, wait for the opening, and then smack the GrantHindenburgs with everything that they had. They managed to turn the point back in their favor. Really well played there. But again, as I mentioned before, we always get some interesting results on control. And I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys are going to show as we move over on to, I believe, our next map type is going to be hybrid.
So it's going to be either Kings Row or Hollywood. So I think we know where we're going in this one. That said, GrantHindenburgs in the last matchup against Lunatic Hello did drop this first map as well. So not the end of anything, but also that said, 7-Eleven did win all three after winning the control point map themselves. So we're going to have to wait and see how the GrantHindenburgs respond here. But what we've been seeing them run a lot is the double shield, just in general throughout the tournament. That is a comp they feel very comfortable on. And they do obviously have two main tanks on their team. Sully, well known for his efforts on 2CP. Bubbles, of course, well known for his Reinhardt. You're not going to see him play much else today, I don't think. So that is a composition. Do you think the kind of limited, when you also think that Grant Hines only really plays Ashen Widow, do you think their limited hero pool is going to become a problem here, or do you think they can work around that effectively?
That's a difficult one. I mean, if you look at a team like Clockwork Vendetta, who were known for being one tricks, I mean, they just about won contenders by playing the exact same competition in the height of composition in the height of the 3-3 GOATs meta. So sometimes having one or two heroes that you are just absolutely disgusting on is just what you need to win out against a team who are possibly trying to be a little bit more meta, trying to come to grasps with what everybody else is playing and maybe not playing their own game. And that's really important. That's something that becomes super important, is forcing the enemy team to play your game. So it is very possible that they can turn that into an advantage for themselves. But you got to look at the flip side. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because not being able to flex onto other heroes, as you say, it can limit you. It can limit your possibilities. I mean, if all you can play is Genji and Tracer and you're running into a team that's playing McCree, May, Brigitte as well, and it starts to become a little bit of an issue. So it is possible that this could just be the feather in the cap that they need, or it could be their ultimate downfall. I couldn't tell you. They're going to have to show us with their gameplay as we move into Kings Row. Kings Row, that's the one.
So it will be Kings Row, as we suspect it might be. Teams are swapping sides here as well. So you'd think this is a map that favors the GrantHindenburgs' preferred strategy. Widowmaker, not a bad pick on the first point at least. And the double shield very commonly played on Kings Row. So this, in theory, should be a little bit more in their favor.
Theoretically, I do like that you say that. Theoretically. And of course, as we mentioned about these hybrid type maps, it's a combination of taking control of a point and then escorting a payload. So you've got that really good mix. You got a hybrid between control and escort.
It all kicks into place.
Suddenly
everything makes sense.
Brain boom, 900 IQ. So it really comes down to how well you're able to do those two things. We do see a lot of teams that really shine at either capturing or defending a point, but when they have to escort or stop an escort, they become a little bit lackluster. And some teams just dominated both. It does happen. So this is where we really need to start to see. I wouldn't call it back and forth on Li Jiang. I really wouldn't. It was somewhat dominant. And again, that was really about capturing a point. So for this very first point, I'm going to favor the 7-Elevens a little bit. But bearing in mind, there is a huge spawn advantage here for whichever team is attacking. So that could really start to come into play for the GrantHindenburgs as they are going to be making their very first attack. And interesting composition here. Grant Hines, as you mentioned, going to be rocking that Widowmaker and the May on the offense here to try to wall off somebody. That's an interesting wall to try and enable a rotation. I'm here for it, but the enemy team was nowhere near there, so that's a cooldown that they're not going to have for their first engage.
Well, I mean, it's quite a short cooldown, so it might be ready, but it didn't end up paying off a huge amount there. Oh, needs to be careful here, Sully, taking a bit of damage. Oh, dropping nice and low. Almost taken out there before they can even get the fight started. Oh, this is a flanking Torbjorn, might get frozen up, but Soul Eater not going to take the risk of losing his own life there, so commits the ice block. Oh, GrantHindenburgs, he's found an angle, he finds Asterix and gets rid of the main healer. There is a resurrection here available from Shadows, so they might be able to do that, but nice aggressive play from the GrantHindenburgs is going to make sure that Shadows doesn't have the space to use that resurrection. As a Torb trying to get his flank on here, but I don't think he's going to find any value out of that, at least if Bubbles has anything to say about it. They're going to get the cap here.
Wow.
Yes, they are, and they've just committed to another fight. Colby Ginger finds the kill onto the enemy Widowmaker. GrantHindenburgs won't be able to do anything about that here, but Slade, he's got more than enough in the tank to get a double kill on the enemy DPS, and now he's just going to mess around in the sky, be a nice big distraction, and push the GrantHindenburgs forward.
You see, Slade's back on that Lucio now. Yeah. You see, that's what they were missing in the last map. They were missing the Slade Lucio. That was the problem. I mean, immediately.
Though.
He is literally the terror from the deeps for the poor Sevren 11s here. They're just not able to deal with his Redditness. And yeah, free cart push here as. Wait, okay, yeah, there is somebody on the cart there. I thought it looked like it was stalled out. And the rest of the Hindenburgs have pushed way forward into the third phase area here, just keeping the team held back so that the cart gets as much push as possible.
I saw them try to do that in the previous game, and it also backfired. They go for the halt and look for the boot from Slade, but it doesn't end up working out as Babs picks himself up a quick double, and the follow-up is there from 7-11. That said, the GrantHindenburgs did get a decent push out there, and they pulled a lot of ultis out of 7-11, so still pretty good in their favor.
Real Ultimates could have been a little bit of an overcommitment there. They started off with the Gravitic Flux, which I may remind you got nothing. And then they followed up with the Molten Core, which did some space denial. That's really important. But I think the most impactful ultimate there was the Valkyrie to give them that little bit of damage boost and to help them push forward with the AoE healing. Now, AoE, that's a big old snow globe.
That is a big old snow globe. The lamp gonna stop the damage for a little bit. The Bob committed here as well. By Colby Ginger executes Bubbles like he's not even there. As Asterisk looks to put the damage in on this Baptiste and keep the Bob alive. Can he do it? No, he can't. Sully gets the kill on the enemy robot. But will they be able to clean up the rest of this team fight? 7-11 still looking pretty decent here, in fact, as Darkstar moves forward on this Reinhardt, building his way up towards the Shadow. Can he find the big Shadow? He just got it down. He knows where the shield is. He pops the shield down. He finds 4 on their backs, and now he can just swing away. The GrantHindenburgs, though, still have enough in the tank. GrantHindenburgs picks himself up a quick double, and now they can push forward. 4 down on the side of 7-11, and after a good mid-fight, the GrantHindenburgs flip it on back.
A massive misplay from 7-11 to get the entire enemy team on their backs while Bubbles is not in the front line, and then to have absolutely zero follow-up, but rather get 2 of your players deleted by GrantHindenburgs while you're trying to get value. It's very unfortunate. 4 minutes to push, and we're going to start things off here with a supercharger. Tons of ultimates for GrantHindenburgs, and they're just rolling on through.
Rolling on through indeed. Let's see if they can roll on through to a nice long time back for their defense. They're gonna have to sit through a bit of pause, though.
It's
I
another
wonder
pause.
who it is this time, because nobody made the call for the BB as far as I can see.
Oh, please, not Bubbles. No, it's the other.
I think it's the other. Yeah, it's the other. I thought it was Bubbles. I thought his power came back and killed his generator or something. But yeah, that's Babs going down, and Babs was actually subbed out for 7-11's previous match. Seraphim was playing in his place, so I wonder if this could be something a little bit more serious, but we'll have to wait and see. What was his ult charge? Peach told me to look, and then I forgot.
I believe it was around the 30% mark. So remember they used it in the last fight, which got nothing. So it was around about the 30% mark. Not massive, but still not ideal for him to have lost it and not have that available for the next fight. Now, what we're also noticing is, of course, 2 ultimates have just been used. The Supercharger, as I mentioned, and the Bob. Now we saw Sevren 11 pull back. They did very well to kite that supercharger because it was planted very far back. So all they had to do was kind of move back. It does give up a lot of cart progress, but staying alive means that you're able to contest for another fight. So they wait that out a little bit. Supercharger, in fact, the fight has moved so far past the supercharger that it's now become basically irrelevant. That being said,
yeah.
I mean, I call it like I see it. The Bob, on the other hand, I believe it's the Bob that's the red squiggle in the right-hand side of the screen who seems to be making a beeline for their spawn. Which could prove very effective if they start to get picks off. And anytime one of the enemy team, one of the 7-Elevens try to move towards the cart, they're going to get bobbed. So it actually is some pretty interesting positioning for that Bob, but I quite like it. And that being said,
Yeah.
Bubbles still has the hammer down. I've said the name of this ability. I have said it. Earth Shatter. He still has the Earth Shatter available to do
got
him.
supercharger, and that was pretty pog because I never get that one right.
Gravitic Flux, but I can forget Earth Shatter. I don't know. Vertigo, very close to a Coalescence as well. So some very big ultimates for the attacking squad here for the GrantHindenburgs. Not looking too good for the 7-Elevens, as it seems Babs is back. We're going to be jumping in any second here. They're going to have a Bob of their own, and they have another Valkyrie. So they do have an opportunity to try to turn this one around, but that's all really that they have. They have already used the Molten Core in the previous fight that didn't get too much value. Mito could build it up fairly quickly, but I'm not sure if he's going to have it before the end of this next fight.
Well, we'll have to wait and see as we do get the action unfolding here. A reminder that with the Babs' death, he will have to run out from spawn as well. So it's not just the ultra charge, it's the position as well, as Grant Hines picks up one with his ultimate there, and Slade going to execute another full. You got to watch out for this Lucio because he's going to take you down as the Bob flies on back to spawn. Grant Hines on a good angle here, looking for something to deal with. He sees the turret, he's going to get rid of that one, make sure his teammates can move around freely as there's a big brawl on the point, but it's already in the kill feed. It's all GrantHindenburgs in control here, and I think with that, it's just the ball on the point here. Sully gonna try and take him down. The boot doesn't quite get him into the hole, unfortunately, and now the spawns are starting to come back. Shadows, he's the one with the boot action here, takes Slade down. Lucio on Lucio action, and unfortunately, the GrantHindenburgs are starting to fall behind here. The spawns might be too much to handle, but this blizzard might be exactly what they need to bring things back in their favor. Mito gonna go down here on the turban, and Bubbles able to swing away, helped of course by the Coalescence courtesy of Vertigo. He's got a shatter now. He should just use it here to get rid of the ball. Does he end up hitting him? I'm not sure. Nope. Doesn't look like it. And Bubbles, he does pick up a double though, but this ball's a problem, man, and the spawns are still coming in. Force 11-11, deal with Darkstar, get rid of him. Somebody pull his internet cable out or something, because he's going to be a problem. They do end up taking him down. Bubbles taking matter into his own hands once again. Now it's Lucio on the point though. Slade committed his ultimate, and they managed to push them off the point for long enough to get that cap. 2.5 minutes on the time bank isn't anything to be mad about though.
They started that with about 4 minutes as they hit that third phase of the map, and really well done to the 7-Elevens to burn it down to 2.5. I mean, given how strong and dominant we've been seeing. Oh, another one. Okay, though that was a please pause. Okay, that was like an actual request. So maybe it's just like a lag spike or something. So not too bad at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty dominant.
They're in control here.
Yeah,
Babs,
for
Babs
once.
is struggling with ping, actually, is what he says.
It's that ping spike. I want to take this moment, Spunky, if you're still in the chat. It's for you, buddy. Anyway, moving swiftly along. Very, very dominant display here from the GrantHindenburgs. Not really what we saw on Lijiang Tower. And in fact, that first attack, I kind of spoke about the difference between capturing a point and escorting a payload. A first point capture was really good, given what we saw on Lijiang and how it was so difficult for them to flip the point back. It's really impressive how quickly and how easily they were able to take that first point and get that payload moving. Once the payload was moving, they were near unstoppable. They have been an absolute force on this attack, and as we've said, 2.5 minutes, nothing to scoff at. Going to be a little bit more difficult here for the 7-Elevens to turn it around, but if they can harness the same raw Chad energy that we saw on Lijiang Tower, it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Shouldn't be, but we'll have to see if this kind of energizes the GrantHindenburgs. And you know, credit where it's due, the man himself has been popping off a little bit. On the Widowmaker, he's what got it all started on that first point, and we saw him popping off in the mid-fight on the Ashe on a couple of occasions as well. So impressive plays from the Grant Hines, the namesake of the team itself. That said, like I say, I will have to wait and see if this energizes the GrantHindenburgs. This is a team, we spoke to Bubbles yesterday, that thrives with that energy. He says they gave each other speeches when Grant Hines couldn't play in their last match in the group stage. It fell to Bubbles, it fell to Slades to make sure the energy was high and they were playing with that kind of, fire. And it seems like when they're thriving with that, when they can use that to advantage, they win maps and they've got momentum now. Let's see if they can keep it going forward.
That's momentum. That is a key word, particularly on these escort maps. You really want to make sure that you keep that going. And the great way to do that is exactly what we saw from the GrantHindenburgs. They had a very good opening where they just, as soon as they captured point, they actually knew that the Sevren 11s were 6 again because Asterix was already back from spawn. But it didn't matter. They pushed forward. They went full Chad energy as that's my new thing apparently. And yes. Oh, no. We paused again, boys.
I was just getting ready to go. Damn.
You know what, hey?
But
7-map series, but it's going to be like...
audio. My dude has the most amazing setup ever, but unfortunately his audio isn't playing ball today, apparently.
For all people to have audio issues, it's the content creator.
It's the guy, the professional audio guy. Who's having audio issues. Well, hopefully that means you can get it sorted out nice and quickly.
It do be like that sometimes. So hopefully, as you say, they can turn that one around. Now, I'm curious to see what we're going to see on attack from these guys. Defense, we're likely to see that double shield, as you mentioned. Both main tanks, Sully and Bubbles there, and they're going to try and leverage that in their favor. It's, you work to your strong suit, right? And of course, they know that Grant is a snipey boy. So I'm curious to see how they're going to try to deal with that. Will they bring out something like a Diva or something that can just get in his face, like a Genji? But potentially not. As they are the attacking squad, I'm going to give them a minute to really think about Grant on that hit scan. And while they're doing that, I'll take a look at this defense. And it's that defense that I have been praising up and down the Torbjorn and the Ashe. That space denial, double turret in your face nonsense.
Crossfire.
Yes, I love it.
Now, we do know that Darkstar is well known for his Diva, so they do have that in their bank, but they're choosing to lean on the double shield composition here. How do you feel about this comp, quickly before we get started?
You know what, it can work. I'm not too sure about the Pharah into someone basically one tricks hit scans, but if Mito is a phenomenal DPS player. If he can keep using the sightlines to his advantage, keep using cover, then he can get a lot of value out of all of the spam.
Yeah, and if anybody can, it will be Mito, well known for his prowess on the Pharah and projectile heroes in general as he works his way around. Gonna get rid of that turret in short order and just try and put the damage in from over the top. He's playing Soldier on the low ground, don't need rockets. There he goes, over the top. Actually a great angle here. And so far, Grant Hines not really dealing with him. He's trying to duel Sevren, who found a nice flanking angle and took him out. That said, the tanks though on the front line are hitting the deck for 7-11, so they're gonna have to back up here and try and approach this one again.
Unfortunately, if your tank line isn't getting the support that they need, you're not going to get the angle that you want, the wedge that you need to get your way in there. Now, Grant should not be dueling Ginger. I'm not sure who they should be having on Ginger. Maybe it should be Torbjorn, but one of them's got to be dealing with Mito in the sky because he's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Grant looking for a flanking angle here. He wants to deal with the tanks on the low ground, and say what you will, it worked well in the last team fight. The tanks going down nice and early. Gave this team the space to get things done, but you don't deal with the fire. That's what happens. She builds a quick ulti up and she deletes your team in a matter of seconds.
Nothing to deal with that barrage. None of the supports. I think we'd already seen the coalescence pop, so there was nothing to keep the team alive through that barrage of damage. And there was just nothing. No ways. It's really unfortunate, but it could be like that. And now the 7-Elevens will take quick, well, not as quick, but fairly quick control and get the payload moving. The rest of the team is pushing forward. They're going for that super aggressive stance that we saw a little bit earlier on, actually committing the Valkyrie as well to try and just make sure that they can get as much cart push as humanly possible. And it does seem to be working. They are pushing the GrantHindenburgs back.
Oh, I hear a shadow though. Vertigo's on her back, but the sound barrier from Slade gonna make sure she doesn't end up going down. There's somebody on the cart, and that means it's a 5v6. And with Bubbles picking up a double, I think that's a 5v4. Colby Ginger though finds himself an angle to pick up a double, but Slade gets him back in short order, so we can't do any more damage. But the numbers are dwindling here for the GrantHindenburgs, and they're gonna have to back up. This Bubbles on 82 HP. He's not looking pretty healthy here. He tries to get out, and the Farah, okay, just barely gets out. Both tanks on such low HP. The GrantHindenburgs gonna regroup.
Amazing that those tanks actually managed to make it out alive, but 7-Eleven showing the same strength that we saw from the GrantHinden. Oh my goodness.
Oh no, it happened again, ladies and gentlemen. Mito finds the angle, finds the double pick with the rocket barrage, and finds 7-Eleven a quick push onto second point. They're gonna have almost 5 minutes on the clock here, Sam.
I was worrying about running that Farah into the GrantHindenburgs, but as I mentioned, Mito, known for his abilities on this Farah, for being able to get value when he probably shouldn't. And as you've said, just under 5 minutes here to push through, that is a ton of time. And now we're going to have to see the GrantHindenburgs putting up just as strong of a defense. They do have 3 ultimates online here to try and do it, both of which zoning ults. So they might be able to stall just a little bit longer.
Sully has moved onto the ball here, going to try and do a little bit of disruption as Mito takes down the tower. That Molten Core finds a kill, but there's still Mito in the sky being such a problem, and now he's on top of Grant, and he does find that kill, his second of the team fight. Both DPS hitting the deck courtesy of the Farah, and now Vertigo going down. He's just going to pick up all 6 by himself, or I suppose not by himself. He is backed up by Shadows on the mercy. The Shadow comes through, Slade on his back. He does have the sound barrier, so they do have options when it comes to recontesting, but it's looking pretty difficult for the GrantHindenburgs here.
That Shadow may have been a little bit of an overcommitment here, but Sully, not one to give up, has thrown those mines onto the point. Not going to be enough to deny spaces. They can just walk around the other side. And yeah, not looking too good. Wait, what is going on?
Just picked himself up a double though. He picks off 1 DPS, he picks off the second. Of course, Mito brought back to life by Shadows, but he's going to have to back on out of here as the GrantHindenburgs come back swinging.
A really good rally there from the GrantHindenburgs to come back out of spawn. They do have that spawn advantage, which does work wonders for them, and to turn this fight around. They have managed to knock quite a bit of time off the clock here. They need to knock off at least a minute if they want to get a better time bank. They have that sound barrier available to them, but Mito has another barrage in his pocket, and we know how deadly those can be. Zaid's going to need to keep that sound. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Yeah, I hope they're keeping track of Mito's positioning. They're getting so aggressive here, and they've already got 2 kills, so maybe that's enough. Make that 3 as Bubbles finds Babs with a 5 strike. He does pay for it with his life, but they've done more than enough to make sure the to make sure 7-Eleven can't get anything back.
But 7-Eleven play that so well. They don't use any of their ultimates. They're just like, all right, we die, we come back. 3 ultimates in the bag here: Supercharger, Dragon Strike, and Barrage. We know how deadly those 3 ultimates can be, but there is a Sully in the back line.
Oh, that's a nice boot. Actually disrupts the 5 strike a little bit, or the Dragon Strike, but he does still end up taking down the Grant Hines himself. The Grant Hines. Sully picks off 1 though. Colby Ginger hits the deck. Ginger hits the deck there as Babs gets the follow-up. Mito, he finds the angle he's looking for. He gets the damage down, and he finds Vertigo, who's trying to man up. He's so low, and Grant Hines has returned to the fray to get rid of that pesky Farah. There's still bodies on the point here, but Sully on the ball, gonna make sure there's no movement happening just yet, and allow space for his team to come out of spawn and start getting some kills. He goes down eventually, but Reinhardt is back. Sorry, Bubbles with a very ambitious shadow, and it's returned straight away by Darkstar, who is dropping low though. He needs some healing here if he's gonna stay alive against that dynamite. Shadows brings Astros back, so quite a lot of players back in the mix here for 7-Eleven, and Mito finds himself an angle, gets nice and aggressive up on the DPS and supports, and gets a triple kill, and that should be enough to secure them. If they can just get this clean up, yes they can, but it's a minute less than what the GrantHindenburgs were able to accomplish.
that's I really got to give it to the GrantHindenburgs on their defense. They're managing to really hold off stem the tide for quite a long time. They managed to burn about 3.5 minutes off the clock. That's nothing to scoff at. But the time disparity, it's not great. It doesn't favor the Sevren 11s now. And they're going to be starting on the attack first because they have the lower time bank. They will get to attack first on the second round. And they're really going to need to power through. We saw a fantastic first attack from the GrantHindenburgs a little bit earlier on, and now the Sevren 11s need to have something a little bit stronger than what we saw the first time around. Their very first offense was shut down relatively quickly. Now we need to see them really throw everything, kind of throw their weight behind this offense, get that point capture early so that they can get that cart moving, get as much progress as humanly possible. They basically have the opportunity here to set the bar for how much they need to hold. So the further they push, the more leeway they have to hold with. If they get full held here, it's not going to be ideal for them. It's very difficult to pull off a full hold, especially when you know the enemy team has an extra minute on you. They're going to be coming out with the same composition that we saw earlier on. Did seem to work out fairly well for them. Let's see if they can execute it just that little bit better this time.
Just a minute and a half to play with here, as you mentioned, so not a lot of room for error, to say the least. They move forward now, 5-strike comboed with the ultimate, but Grant Hines gonna strike early once again. Mito dies in a place where shadows can get to him at least, so it's not gonna be permanent, but that resurrection now no longer available. But Mito needs to be dealt with in the sky here. He's putting in so much damage. You see Grant trying to find an angle to deal with him, but Colby Ginger putting him under pressure. He can't just look at the Farah, he's also got to worry about that Hanzo. Really nice play again from the DPS as GrantHindenburgs drop so low. Grant Hines is taken down, so nothing to deal with that Farah anymore, especially when they lose 3 in quick succession like that. Colby Ginger does go down, but it's not going to make any difference as the GrantHindenburgs are forced back once again.
A very nice push there. They had to, unfortunately, wait for Mito to get back after being taken down by Grant Hines, but they didn't let it slow them down for too long, and they immediately started their next assault. Now they have just under 30 seconds to get as much push as possible. A little unfortunate. They have to wait for the garage door to open, and that must be so frustrating. And you're like, come on, come on.
No matter which way you look at it.
Yeah, pretty much, but still, you know, it's that sense of urgency. You know, the music's playing, it's a little bit scary. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok.
Oh, they are now pretty much into overtime here, so one team fight could spell their doom. It's going to have to be perfect execution here. Oh, this is a good start immediately again. A double kill from Mito. He's taking a nap now, but I think it's a well-earned rest as he secures his team a long push here on King's Row in overtime.
Oh, no, what are you doing, Vertigo? You're going to get staggered out, and that is no mercy for the GrantHindenburgs as they come in for an attempt to contest before the cart reaches second point. Like, they need to get this cart stopped. They have an Earth Shatter, they have a Bob. If they can maybe just toss the Bob out there just to get a contest going, because this payload is moving, and I don't see signs of it stopping.
Well, it won't stop before second point. GrantHindenburgs have made the decision. They're going to try and hold up on the corner here, and this is one we know is quite a difficult one to push around. That said, Colby Ginger does have his ultimate here. The Dragon Strike could prove difficult for when comboed with the Halt. He doesn't find anything on this occasion. A big shadow works its way up the ledge to catch Colby Ginger, but he also catches 2 more on the low ground, and that's going to secure the defense for the GrantHindenburgs, but it leaves them with a lot of work to do on their attack.
Nice combo there to get everybody on their backs just after throwing out the Bob. Yeah, you have to wait for Bob to have his little run up and get to the payload. And as soon as he got there, the Earth Shatter came out, everybody's on their backs, and Bob is, I mean, they're just sitting ducks for Bob. So a lot of value there out of the only 2 ultimates that they had available to them. Great work to stall out that payload. A little unfortunate that they weren't able to do that before second point, but understandable after having Vertigo stalled out so badly on that last fight. Now is where the tricky part comes, okay? So this is great news for the Sevren 11s. They know they have a ton of leeway, but at the same time, you don't want to give up an inch if you can help it. And speaking of giving up, an
Oh.
inch. We're not going to have another pause.
Something gave up. It's not Babs this time. It's somebody else. It's Bubbles.
Bubbles
His
again.
power came back, I'm sure. So he's going to have to run outside again and pop the generator off or do whatever he needs to do. I don't know how that works. So
neither.
he should be back hopefully in just a moment. Hopefully he has an SSD as well, so it won't take him that long to get back into the game. But it gives us a little bit of time here, Sam, to break down the compositions we're seeing.
Well, I mean, it's pretty standard stuff in terms of the Torb Ash that we saw a little bit earlier on. I mean, I wax lyrical about that at every opportunity that I get. It's just such a powerful composition. The Pharah, unsurprising, given that it is Mito. And in the Pharah Hanzo is another composition that we tend to see quite often for similar reasons to the Ashe and the Torbjorn. Now, it's not so much about the space denial, more about the crossfire, creating angles, getting tons of damage from different areas on the map. You can split up the team's attention and force them to kind of rotate in unfavorable ways. And even the ultimates that we see. Now, Mito, being the phenomenal Pharah that he is, he just gets unprecedented value out of those barrages, getting 2+ kills every time. The Dragon Strike tends to get a little bit of value, but more than anything, it's about bisecting the enemy team, forcing them into really awkward positions. And while the one team is on the other side of the dragon and aren't able to cross the stream and get back to the rest of their team, you take that opportunity to get 1 or 2 picks. And then you've immediately given yourself an advantage and you can press forward with that. So some very, very strong ultimates. Unsurprising to see that this is what they are opting for. What I do find curious is on this attack, now we did see a little bit earlier, Soul Eater running through with the Mei paired up with that Ashe. And we did kind of mention how the walls were not quite getting the value that we would have expected. It does negate a little bit of damage, and in that regard it helps quite a lot. But the problem is, once the wall is up, we're not seeing the mobility, we're not seeing the go button, like, okay, wall's up, now we rotate. They kind of stall out a little bit and unsure of exactly where they're going. Are we going around the Mandata statue? Are we going through hotel? How are we approaching this? Oh, geez, there's a Torbjorn through the hotel. Guess we've got to go around the statue. Oh, the wall's down and the damage is coming through again. So there's that moment of fogginess, and they need to get that clarity. If you're going to be using that Mei wall, it is such a good utility to use to your advantage. And if they're going to be using it, they've got to make sure they're using it effectively.
Absolutely. And we, looking at the composition, looking at Mito specifically on this Pharah, you mentioned before how GrantHindenburgs is on the Ashe, but I think he needs to do a little bit of a better job just focusing his energy on the Pharah, at least putting her under enough pressure. She can't just move around the map like she's been doing. And we saw him a little, but he is struggling to deal with Colby Ginger a little bit. Colby's doing Sevren is doing a really good job of putting the pressure on the Ashe so that Mito has the space to work. And that's been the downfall of the GrantHindenburgs a little bit. And where they are on the defense here, whereas we usually see them run the Pharah on the attack for 7-11. But if it's working as well as it is, why would you switch it up? Doesn't make any sense. So I can definitely see the value in that. So yeah, I was going to say something else. Now I forgot. So
I'm sure it'll come to you.
I'm sure it will.
Happy to see Vertigo on that Mercy as well. I think that given the sheer amount of spam, a Moira would really, really work well here. But what I also think works in their favor is having that damage boost on Grant. They really do need to be focusing a little bit more on that. As you mentioned, I mean, it is Mito. We are aware of this. And because Mito is so good at playing cover, they need to be able to output a lot of damage so that he doesn't have time to get back behind cover and for Shadows to heal him back up. So having that Mercy, giving Grant that little bit of extra oomph really does play a big part. And then, of course, being able to get the res. I mean, this immediately, okay, bubbles notwithstanding, the Vertigo brings you up to a 7v6. But it looks like Vertigo's back, so it's no longer just a 6v6. They are going to get that numbers advantage and bring it up to the 7v6 that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So it does also depend on where you die. Can Mercy safely res? Is Mercy the first person to die? Because in that case, it didn't really matter in the first place.
Can't res yourself, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it would be nice, but maybe in a couple patches, who knows?
Yeah,
but
maybe that's the buff that Mercy needs, right?
Yes, so I don't know.
Could you imagine?
Sounds terrible. But Yeah. They do need to start utilizing that Mercy a little bit better, getting those reses off and keeping the team alive. I do like that they're pairing the Mercy with the Anna because they realize that they're losing quite a bit of healing by not having the Moira. So you bring in the Anna for those massive nade heals and, of course, the ability to hit scan heal once you scope in. So a lot of utility. And, of course, the sleep dart to try and get Mito out of the sky because Mito's annoying as hell. So
Yeah.
they're bringing a lot of
Vertigo
good
doing a
utility.
pretty good job of that, actually. On the
actually.
defense. So we are just waiting here. 17 seconds. Bubbles has finally rejoined. There was an Overwatch update apparently, so I was terrified we were gonna have to like rehost the lobby or something. But thankfully, nothing of the sort is going down, and he's gonna be running that Winston here. What do you think of that?
You know what?
No, false
I
alarm.
think you got debated.
I got
Well,
you baited so hard. I didn't realize they were attacking. I would have not said that.
Yeah, no.
Once
The Winston
again-
would not have worked out too well here, but I do like the composition that they are running out with. We did talk about it a little bit, and I think it should work well for them if they can utilize those May walls, as I did mention earlier.
Yep, I thought it might be some of that creative South African play that you were talking about, but turns out that would have just been bad. So they are moving in something a little bit more consistent, something a little bit we more expect of them, and they are struggling to find their way through here. Colbert Ginger just going to be putting the damage down on the ulti. Oh, he's found an angle here. They need to be careful. Grant needs to be careful. Oh, they are lucky to get away with that, but they're not able to get away with Soul Eater's lifeless. Babs finds that kill on him. Mito is in a really good position here to keep himself hidden from Grant Hines' Ash, but also put down the damage. But for now, they have forced the GrantHindenburgs back.
Now that did seem like a pretty good wall. There was an opportunity there, but Soul Eater a little bit too far forward, gets taken out, and the rest of Sevren 11 able to just kind of walk around the side of the wall. It could have been good if they were able to follow up on it, but unfortunately the follow-up wasn't there. Coming in with the nano boost though, this could prove huge.
Oh, that shadow looked like it was about to be so huge, but the wall coming up just in time, the shield rather, from Darkstar. So unfortunately, doesn't find what they're looking for. It's messy fight so far, but Colbergin's kill onto Vertigo might be just enough. He finds another one. The Resurrection comes out, and although there isn't a counter kill from the Soul Eater's Farah, he has switched up to the Farah now, interesting enough. It's not going to be enough to secure GrantHindenburgs the push.
I think Soul Eater realizing that the May is just going to be a little bit too difficult to execute effectively, and I think he might want to take that Sky Battle with Mito. But speaking of Mito, 91% to a barrage, and again, those barrages are deadly. Only 20 seconds left here to try and make something happen for the GrantHindenburgs with no ultimates really to speak of.
Absolutely, and unfortunately they're fighting into a lot of ultimates on the opposing side. Key one, of course, being Mito's ulti, but you're hoping for GrantHindenburg's sake that it's press Q to die, and Asterix is going to oblige. Here is the Q. It's quite far away, and he's not finding any kills just yet. The enemy Farah manages to get away from that. Now they're dueling in the sky, but they are on point as Peach brings up the menu. Shadow goes down, gets a couple, but a return Shadow gets a couple more. Darkstar with the charge through, but his teammates are falling all around him, and GrantHindenburgs have finally set themselves up on the point. An aggressive resurrection onto Bubbles, going to help him secure that kill back onto Darkstar, so they're going to be pretty happy with things have unfolded so far in this team fight. Bob committed quite late here, maybe a bit of an overcommitment. Sally shaking his head in disappointment perhaps, but it does pick up the pharmacy right at the end and allows them to push on forward.
Sometimes you gotta just give yourself that little bit of extra push just to make it on through. And now, I mean, we did talk a little bit earlier about how once the GrantHindenburgs got the payload moving, they were an unstoppable force. Now they got 2 ultimates in their bank. They've got that supercharger. Soul Eater's got a barrage. We're gonna get to see his first barrage of the series. Can he match Mito's prowess? Let's find out. As we see the Sevren 11s don't really have ultimates to speak of at the moment. They're going to have a coalescence fairly soon, but they're going to need to play this one a little bit more safe while trying not to give up too much space.
Interesting to see what Soul Eater decides to do here. Kills, mutual kills actually on the 2 DPS. There's a resurrection though. Yeah, Vertigo gonna make it so that this favors the GrantHindenburgs. There we go. Finally gets that ulti out. No! Oh no! That is the most awful C9 I've ever seen in my
That's a
short
Charlie
life.
Niner, boys.
That was terrible.
No.
Oh,
Oh
no,
man, you hate
You'll
to
never see a
it.
purer C9 than what we just witnessed. They were not under any pressure.
Bruh.
Oh no.
Smile.
Break it down. Break it down for us, please.
How do you
What
break down a
happened?
C9? Come on, man.
That's your thing
Like,
to
stop
figure
making
out,
my
man.
job
I don't know.
difficult.
It's the teams. Blame the GrantHindenburgs.
You know what? The barrage came out and everybody got scared and they started scattering. And it's like,
Wasn't it
I mean, I
the
understand you don't want to die to the barrage, but the moment you step off cart, that's it. Like, match over. Not game over, but match over. Like, I mean, and just like that, they've given up a point. And it's super unfortunate because the GrantHindenburgs had such a good opportunity to turn it around and take control there. I mentioned there was such a powerhouse on their first attack, managing to roll through all the way to third point, fairly uncontested. They had an opportunity to really, really show their stuff here and bring that up to a 1-1 scoreline. But unfortunately, stepped off point, fear of the Mito Raj. I don't blame him. And it's a
You can't
2-1
argue
to the
that it's
7-11s.
very scary to bear witness to, especially, I mean, we're just watching from the outside. You can only imagine how it feels when you're in the game and you've died to it twice or 3 times already. So unfortunate, but that's the kind of position you're in when you're pushing in overtime like that. You can't afford any mistakes. We've seen professionals do it. We've seen good Overwatch league level teams C9 in ways just as bad as that. So it does happen, and these guys aren't even professionals. So it's a difficult position to be in, and the GrantHindenburgs are now in a position where they need to say to themselves, we could have won that game. We had that game in the bag, and we just need to move forward with that in mind. You know, chalk that up as a victory and carry the momentum that way, as opposed to focusing on the fact that they just potentially threw away a sure victory. I mean, it obviously wasn't a sure victory. They still had a lot of work to do, but you got to kind of spin that positively if you can.
I mean, if you consider, as I mentioned, how well they did on that escort portion of the map, and that's really important coming into Dorado. So I really hope that what they're saying to each other right now is, okay, lads, we messed up, but we know that we can stomp them on escort if we just keep our heads in the game. And that's really what I'm hoping is the general vibe that's going on in that voice chat right now. I want to see them try and turn this one around. 7-11 on the other hand, they've really got to be patting themselves on the back. Yeah, they've really just be like, okay, Mito, you keep being scary and the rest of us are going to back you up. Go team.
Exactly. You can't. I mean, if you're 7-Elevens, you're not even wiping the sweat off your brow. You're like, we had that under control the whole time, and that was just a free gift, so we don't overexert ourselves as we move on into Dorado now. But I agree with you. I think the GrantHindenburgs can come in with a lot of positivity here. Once they get onto that escort phase, they look pretty strong. And you know, they're a little bit slow to cap that first point, so we're gonna have to see if they can find the angles. And speaking of finding angles, this is a great map for those hit scan heroes, the Ash and the Widowmaker. So maybe this is GrantHind's playground potentially.
Absolutely. I mean, you can get so much value out of snipers on this map, particularly that Widowmaker. If you can, so on that first little push in the initial streets phase. Or rather the initial first point phase. Streets phase is like point 2. But in that first, as you make your way into courtyard, you can get some great sight lines just from anywhere, really. And it doesn't matter where you stand, there's great sights. And then as you move into the courtyard, there's that archway where the second point ticks, where it dings. And you see a lot of great value from Widowmakers just from up on that high ground. And then, of course, you've got the Hanzo. And while he doesn't need to be on a high ground to snipe people, he does still have some fantastic sightlines as well. So we might get to see that a little bit. And, of course, you cannot discount the Mito Farah. There is every possibility that we're going to see that. Another fantastic staple of Dorado recently has been that Torbjorn that we mentioned and that we have seen a little bit earlier on in the series. You can get a lot of value, particularly in this courtyard. Molten Core gets so much value. And of course even the streets phase. The streets phase is generally fairly open, but the streets phase on this map is quite closed off. So we might see it there or towards third point where they can start taking advantage of the closed off nature of the map. But now we'll have an opportunity to take a look at this defense. Well, what I tell you. the Hanzo and the Mito Pharah, and I did talk a little bit about that composition earlier on. And again, they're going to be relying on creating the crossfire between those two heroes, the interplay between them to try and split up the enemy team, split up the focus, take advantage of that, and slowly but surely chip away at this offense. Don't want to look too closely at that offense just yet, because I don't want to look like you and start calling out
Learn
wins.
from my mistakes. Learn from
You
my
know.
mistakes. Yeah, it's
That
a case
means-
of if it ain't broke,
Sorry.
don't fix it on the side
Yeah.
of 7-Eleven.
Absolutely. They know the composition is working. But that being said, does look like the GrantHindenburgs have learned from their mistakes. They're going to be running a double hit scan here. Soul Eater opting for that Kree. Now, May can get a lot of value here, but they are recognizing the massive issue that Mito is presenting to them. So I like the composition that they've picked up here. Soul Eater can easily deal with Mito in the sky, and then you should have a little 1v1 between Grant Hines and Colby Ginger.
Well, not at this range. It ain't easy. You got to hit like 20 headshots on McCree from this range. So he's going to want to put himself in a bit of position, and you're looking here towards Grant Hines to find the picks on Mito if anybody's going to get it in this case. They also do have Slade on the honor, so you can chip in on occasion if he finds himself the space to do so. So far, they're just getting a little bit of free card push, but not so free perhaps as Slade hits the deck there. Colby Ginger picking up his second of the team fight and forcing Grant Hines back towards their spawn. Make that a third as Grant Hines himself hits the deck. And I'm called the team Grant Hines, and I'm sure I've done that 100 times, and I'm sure I will continue to do so. But 7-Eleven gonna hold firm here.
It's fine. You know what? Probably nobody noticed until you pointed it out. So thank you for pointing it out so that we can all make fun of you.
That that's not true. You know there are people somewhere being like, you called the name, you said the team's name. Did you hear that?
Who are they saying that to? You know, Twitch chatter all just sitting at home all alone.
Oh well, as is the law.
Exactly. You know, that's how it need to be, and how it need to be now is a dragon strike that gets nothing.
Does a lot of damage, but doesn't find anything. It's up to Mito to pick up the pieces there as he takes down his counter and also camps the body nice and effectively to make sure Vertigo can't come in and get the rich. She's gonna go for it anyways. Can she get it done? No, I think the respawn already came out. Soul Eater's dropping very lowly here, and Mito is not really under as much pressure as we thought it'd be. The shadow goes down, finds two on the front line, swinging away now. There's a nano boost as well, but it's Sully finding the picks. He gets nano, or he was nanoed rather. Oh, but Shadow's going to bring them back, and unfortunately it's not looking good here in this team fight for the GrantHindenburgs as they get pushed back towards their spawn once again. Only a minute and 45 left on the clock, Nori. Do they need to change things up, or do they just need to change their playstyle a little bit?
I must say, I'm kind of feeling for Bubbles right now, trying so hard to go full assassination on the Pharah in the sky and just not able to do it. I think keeping the Diva is definitely a good thing, and I actually like their composition. I think it can work, but they're just not running it as effectively as they could be. They need to be enabling the right heroes, and they need to be getting Mito out of the sky. He's just causing too many problems. I'd actually like to see Vertigo in the sky with Bubbles, trying to get the Pharah down, trying to get some value there. But right now, they're just staggering out way too quickly and aren't able to get the value that they need. And now they're running into 4 ultimates, which is super dangerous.
They are indeed, but ultimate's coming up for the GrantHindenburgs. So I'd like to see them hold it. There's a gravitic flux on the ground here, but it doesn't find anything. Could get a couple. Oh, not quite able to take the pharmacy out, which is what I think Bubbles was trying to do. Kills going in both directions, but Colby Ginger finding the initial pick might be enough to have secured them. That Shadow, a little bit ambitious from Darkstar, but GrantHindenburgs are getting pushed back. That's a much better Shadow though from Sully, the 2 CP main tank, putting in the work, and he finds Darkstar and allows the GrantHindenburgs to push forward just a little bit.
Finally getting some card push, and that's what they wanted. They still have 2 ultimates available to them. They've got a Bob.
Oops.
No, they forgot about Mito.
Oh, the one gets charged, not a common. Oh, and the spots as well. Sully asserting himself on proceedings, let's say, and we know Grant Hines' opinions on teabagging, so not going to be happy with that one. But they are pushing forward now, the GrantHindenburgs, but unfortunately Sully has hit the deck. So Bubbles, almost commits his. Oh, he doesn't have his ulti, so he's going to get nano boosted up here, and he finds a kill with the help of Slade. So is there still enough in the tank here for the GrantHindenburgs Hindenburgs. Not likely with Colby Ginger on the flank, Ginger on the flank. It's going to be difficult for them to find the value. Sully is back on the ball here, but Bubbles getting demicked might be enough to secure a full hold for 7-11. Are they able to get it? It's just Bubbles, or just Sully, sorry, on the point. Respawns will come through, but they're getting shot down before they get anywhere near the cart. The DPS positioned perfectly to make sure nobody can touch Tracer. Does she get on? She does. Yes, she does get on now, but it's just blue in the kill feed, and it's 7-11 with a full hold on Dorado.
Surprising to see that from the GrantHindenburgs, especially given their performance on King's Row a little bit earlier on. But 7-11, they just had a phenomenal hold. They managed to hold so very well there, completely denying both the hit scans, the McCree and the Ash, denying them space and denying them the ability to deal with Mito in the sky. I mean, it was something you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier on. McCree needs to get like 20 headshots in a row to get the Pharah out of the sky, and you add on to that the Pharah, that Mito does have shadows, giving a excellent pocket there. So while I appreciated the utilization of the Kree, and I think it could have worked out, Mito's Pharah has just been a little bit too deadly. What I am excited to see here is finally Grant going back onto that Widowmaker, and I think that's going to work out far better against Mito's Pharah than the Ash that we saw earlier, because a headshot is a one-shot, right? I mean, even if you're being pocketed by Mercy, you can't heal through a headshot. That, like, it's all over. So if he can manage to...
As much as your solo queue DPS partners might like to pretend that you can,
right?
Unfortunately, when they get shot in the face, you can't actually heal through them.
Unfortunately, much to my chagrin as a Mercy player, I really wish that I could fix the mistakes of my other players by healing through the headshots. But you know what, it is what it is, and it do be like that. So we do have a little bit of a Widow v Widow battle here, as Colby Ginger onto that Widow as well, going to be trying to contest Grant and not allow him to get those shots onto Mito. And Soul Eater on the Reaper isn't going to be any help in that battle at all. He's going to be on he's on the ground floor, and he needs to be dealing with what's going on Cart to make sure that Cart can be stalled out. It's going to be a difficult hold here, given the composition that the GrantHindenburgs are running into. Let's see if they can make it work for them.
Yeah, you're seeing Mito having to play quite carefully here, chooses angles very carefully, but I think he's now near Grant Hines. Just to be careful in his positioning. Okay, no, he gets a good sense of where he is now. He can't start putting the pressure on the front line though. It's Soul Eater on that Reaper, putting the pressure down onto the 7-11's tanks, and it might be up to him to actually open it up so that the rest of the GrantHindenburgs can start putting the damage through. They are on a bit of a timer here though. Mito over the top, he's gonna build that ulti, he's gonna put the damage in, and eventually he's gonna open up opportunities for the 7-11. So might be looking to Grant Hines again here. Unfortunately, ends up going down, and with him down, there's really nothing stopping Mito from putting the damage in. Look at this, 93% on his ulti. The tank's not paying enough attention, and he's just going to take them down in the back lane. He did drop the lamp, and there will be a res, so it might be enough here left in the tank for the GrantHindenburgs to start pushing the 7-11s back. Shadows, though, going to make sure Mito is back in the mix, but with Grant Hines returning to the fray in a moment, I'm sure it's important. In fact, Vertigo's like, I'm not waiting for anybody, I'm gonna get rid of this guy myself. Mito going down there, Verto with the pistol damage. Sully is back in the mix here on his own ball, and he gets rid of the enemy sniper. That's a shadow, finds only Sully at the moment, and a good lamp is gonna make sure he stays nice and healthy. Gravitic Flux committed here. Mercy probably gonna drop as she takes a full brunt of that Sigma ulti, and he's doing more work here, Babs. The Shadow goes down, doesn't find anybody, just Darkstar, who's pretty much full health. Shadows gets a pistol kill of his own there, as Asterix contributes as well on the supports, and unfortunately, it's looking pretty dire for the GrantHindenburgs. 7-11 secure themselves a third map victory here.
Not looking good for the GrantHindenburgs. You know, something I mentioned a little bit earlier was the importance of forcing the enemy team to play your game. And I think that that 7-11 did that fantastically. They came out of spawn, and they didn't like rush out like crazy people and you know, run straight into the enemy team, try and bulldoze them or whatever. They played it slow. They kept shield up. They alternated shield because they had the Reinhardt and the Sigma. They moved forward slowly but surely, giving Mito the opportunity to build up that ultimate. And the more they walked forward, the more the GrantHindenburgs like were holding S, and they just kept moving backwards and giving space and giving space, and they were waiting for Grant to create that opening, to get that Pharah out of the sky so that they could go ahead and rush forward. And they just kept waiting. And then it was too late. Mito had taken Grant out. That was immediately a one-man advantage for the 7-Elevens, and that was their go button. And even then, they didn't play it recklessly. And that's what I love to see. Teams that get overconfident tend to get shut down fairly quickly. The 7-Elevens, they're respecting their opponent. Despite a 2-point lead, now a 3-point lead, they respect their opponents enough to not go in recklessly. So they played it slow, played their game, and forced the GrantHindenburgs to keep moving backwards. And while you're moving backwards, you're not doing a ton of damage on your own. The tank line of 7-Eleven were continuously swinging away, throwing those gravitic balls or whatever, and getting a lot of value. So that's kind of where the GrantHindenburg slipped up a little bit. They gave way too much space. They didn't take it back. I mean, that's kind of your tank's job. That's in the job description. Create space to allow your DPS to pop off. 7-Eleven did that fantastically. The GrantHindenburgs kind of started to fall by the wayside.
A little bit. Now, this is a best of 7, so we're not done with proceedings just yet, but we are going to give the teams a little bit of break and allow perhaps the GrantHindenburgs to get the speeches they need to and get that energy back up, build the momentum again. So we're going to take a short break here. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Pride Cup Grand Finals, a best of 7. And as you can see, one team is reaping the rewards of proceeding so far. 3-0 lead to Sevren 11. GrantHindenburgs firmly on the back foot, it has to be said. But if anyone can come back, it's going to be them. Naori, welcome back, firstly. And secondly, what do you think it's going to take for the GrantHindenburgs to come back and put us down the path towards a reverse sweep?
You know, something we spoke about a little bit earlier, and you asked me if the double main tanks and the hit scan wonder of Grant Hines would be something that held them back. And I kind of gave a little bit of an analogy to the old Clockwork Vendetta and how they use their one-trickness to their advantage, and they they play to those strengths rather than focusing on the weaknesses. And in this particular instance, I think that the inflexibility is definitely causing a little bit of their hassles. I think that Grant, listen, I love the Ashe, but I'm not a fan of an Ashe against a Pharah. And so I think that if he wants to continue playing that hit scan role, he's going to need to swap onto a Pharah, particularly as we move on to Hanamura. This is another amazing Pharah map, and Mito, who has been reaping the rewards of that Pharah throughout this series, there's every possibility we're going to see him pull that out again. If he doesn't, though, the Ashe is a fantastic hero to run because of that small choke point on first point, and you can get so much spam damage. If you can get some dynamites through there, get 3 to 4 people burning, that's easy ult charge to build up that Bob. So again, it puts them in a little bit of a difficult situation where they kind of need to read the enemy team's mind and figure out what the plan is going to be on Hanamura here. This is, of course, our assault type map, so it's the 2 points that they need to take control of. And as we mentioned before, these teams, GrantHindenburgs, seem to kind of struggle a little bit to take control of a point. We saw that on Lijiang Tower, and first point King's Row, they did exceptionally well, but when we came around round 2, again, it took them quite a while before they were able to take control of the point. So this is really their the kind of the chink in their armor as a team. And of course, they're attacking first. So again, kind of setting the standard for themselves. This is kind of something that I mentioned for the 7-11s when they were attacking on King's Row second round. You're basically setting the standard. When you attack first, you're figuring out how far you need to defend. So if they get full held here, they have to full hold if they want to draw. And if they get all 6 points, then they know they've got a little bit of leeway to work with on their defense. So it's very, very important, and attacking first can be a little bit daunting. I'll take a look at this defense for a second here. What can I say? It's that composition that I absolutely adore. The Ashe that I mentioned before, you get a Torb turret in a nice little spot to create that crossfire. Mito is going to build up that ult like an absolute monster. Might be dangerous because they are, GrantHindenburgs running the Pharah into the Torb turret. Could prove difficult, but they are running the Ashe as well. So hopefully with a little bit of their own crossfire, they'll be able to make it through this choke point.
Yeah, they kind of counter each other, the Pharah and the Torbjorn. They tend to, you know, if he finds a good position for that turret and he can deal with it. But I mean, in this turret, when you're just going to get long-range picks like that, it's laid. Going to hit the deck here right off to start proceedings. And you mentioned Mito on this tourbillon, but what that does mean is he's not on the Pharah. So something that you and I spoke about in between the maps during our break is that's what you need to deal with. And Mito deciding he's not going to give them that difficulty here, at least on the first point.
It's interesting to note is that there isn't sort of any defensive ultimate for the GrantHindenburgs, which could prove dangerous when coming into a molten core. They're going to need to be able to sidestep the molten core and still take control of the point. They need to try and deny the value without really having anything to back them up in the process. And losing Bubbles on the attack.
Yeah.
Well,
they're struggling to make their way through this tight choke that you spoke about before. It's really being held back by the DPS, especially Colby, Ginger, and Mito doing a good job of keeping them in place. As Mito with a Vertigo with a very late death there to end things off. But a little bit of a comp changer, a lot of bit of a comp change actually coming out of the GrantHindenburgs.
Bit of a splitish comp here. They are going to be running the dive tanks and Soul Eater on the Genji. Now, they've realized that slow and steady through the choke point isn't going to work. They want to go for something a little bit more aggressive, but they need to be careful with exactly how they run this. Oh, immediately Ball is on the point. So let's see, can they follow up on this?
Yeah, Sully went through very aggressively there long before his team was ready. He wanted to get himself set up nice and early. Bob goes through. He's found himself on the top of the thing there. Not sure about that. Oh no, sorry, that wasn't Bob. That was something else. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about, but what I do know is that the GrantHindenburgs haven't found any kills. As I say that, they're once again proven wrong, as Asterix gonna find his way into the grave, helped along by Sully. And oh, can they find any more? That was just a turret that went down in Shadows. Gonna make sure Asterix is back alive to keep his team healthy. Soul Eater though, he gets the pick onto Mito. That could end up being a very key pick, but they do lose Bubbles in the meanwhile, and a charge onto Soul Eater gonna make short work of the Genji. Unfortunately, they do lose another, and now finally GrantHindenburgs making some movement here. They get that first tick, and they've got the minefield here from Sully. He throws it on down. He's putting pressure on the backlines. The Valkyrie, they're running out for the Mercy here. Shadows. It looks like they're gonna just play patient for now. That charge, ooh, thought he might get him, but it's not gonna happen. He's swinging away. Can he get out? The Ana has laid. He does do just that, but his opposite, his fellow support falls in the meanwhile. Molten Core ended? No, just held on to for a little bit there, but there is a lot of lava on the point, and I think we're gonna have to see GrantHindenburgs pull back, and that was a lot of time that they just lost. Bubbles though, going aggressive though, he's decided he thinks it can still happen. GrantHindenburgs, sorry, gonna commit the Bob as well to make sure he's got a little bit of robot backup. And speaking of backup, Bubbles, he made the correct decision there, getting aggressive with that primal rage, finds himself a double boop, and the man of the hour showing up once again to make his team a little bit of space.
That was some really great play. Okay, maybe not great play. That was
There's your word. There's your word a little bit there.
They utilized their spawn advantage to their advantage. So, you know what? You love to see that. They kind of monkeyed in a little bit. They knew they had the primal rage. They didn't really go for any sort of a regroup. And Bubbles managing to get that 2k, knocking two people off of the point. Perfect opportunity to finally get things rolling. They already had a tick at that point, and it was just what they needed to get that last little bit. But now, Nano Blade, can he get some value out of it?
Well, he's planting his blade on the wall a little bit here. I don't think he's hit a single hero with this. The Soul Eater not going to find the value he needs to out of that, but he does give space for the main tank to find that kill. Bubbles once again opening the door for his team. Grant hides here in the choke. Going to be putting the damage through. There is a Bob on point, but it's mostly red in the kill feed. Vertigo running away. Can she find the kill onto Mito? Not quite, but the follow-up is there, and it's mostly red in the kill feed, but this team fight somehow still favoring the team in blue. It seems like their positioning on point is just a little bit better, and the healer's going down, and Mito still being alive is too much to deal with for the GrantHindenburgs. 7-11 finally stabilizing here, and not a tick given away.
It looks like the GrantHindenburgs are playing a little bit scared. I mean, they got so many pickoffs. All they needed to do was get onto the point, and they were just like, nah. there's still 2 people alive. Maybe they'll turn it around. I'm not too sure if I want to do this. And I mean, that's nonsense. You've got to take advantage of those picks. You know they have spawn advantage. You need to get in their faces and deny them the space. You're running the Ashe. I mean, that in itself causes that space denial. Now they're swapping over onto the Mei. They want to add some more space denial into the mix there. And hopefully this time they're actually going to do something. They've made some big swap offs here. We've gone back onto the double shield. We've even got a Brigitte in the mix. They've given a whatever ult charge they may have been left with at the end of that last fight. They're going to try and build some stuff up here. They've only got a minute to push through, and they're coming up against the Nano Boost and Colby, who's swapped over onto the Doomfist.
Nano Boost here, as you mentioned, on too bad straight away. This cleave damage from the Monkey, the Tesla Cannon, putting a lot of work, but again, it's the red team getting the kills. The GrantHindenburgs securing themselves a couple, but they have lost Vertigo, so it's going to be a little bit difficult. They do get that tick though, so if they do lose out here, they will have something to defend with. And Colby Ginger going to find himself the kill onto Slade and look for a little bit more in the choke, but he won't get there. But he might find Bubbles here. He needs to watch out for the charge. He gets the punch as a counter charge, and Bubbles, yeah, he's just going to get taken down by the turret. Not even a chance to stagger that. Not that you really want to stagger a Reinhardt, but yeah. Because GrantHindenburgs going to have to approach this one again.
Yep, and we're seeing some comp swap-ups here from the 7-Elevens as well. We got a Brigitte in the mix as well here. And looking at the ult economy, we got dueling Earth Shatters coming online, and everyone else is still kind of building up. They were close to a Molten Core, close to a Nano Boost, but we've only got 10 seconds to do something, and this is where they really need to try and utilize everything that they have and push through.
Oh, Bubbles dropping low here. This is not a good start. He ends up getting Nano Boosted, but he has no targets to hit, really. And they're losing players on the point. Nito now with the Molten Core. A good shatter. Finds a couple, but you've got to think it's too little, too late here, as 4 of his teammates had already dropped. And that is about as clean as it gets from 7-Eleven as they pick up a full 6k and lose nothing in return.
Again, just playing so scared. Of course, the Nano Boost came onto Bubbles. You mentioned he was getting low, so the Nano Boost comes in to make sure he stays alive, and then he just stands on point with his shield up, and the rest of his team is dying on the high ground. I mean, if you see that your main tank has dropped down onto point, follow him, play as a team, move together, get onto point, get your healers together, and then start defending. But they continue to play split. They weren't able to get onto the point. Mito just came out and lavaed up the whole point, and by that point, the whole of the GrantHindenburgs team had already been taken down. The lava was really just for if there were 1 or 2 stragglers, and of course Bubbles, who was left alone on the point with just a Nano Boost to try and keep him alive. It wasn't going to be enough. So valiant effort. They do manage to get 1.5 ticks, all the way up to about 67%. Not bad. And now, as I said, they've set themselves the bar, and they realize now that is the progress that they need to make if they want to turn this one around. Looking at this defense here, we're going to be seeing that Pharah, not the Torbjorn that we saw in the last round from Mito. Instead, Soul Eater opting for that Pharah. Going to be potentially expecting Mito to come out on the Pharah. So expecting to have to take that Sky battle, but at the same time knowing that he can spam down the choke and hopefully deny some push. And of course, Grant on the Ashe, but I did mention I really do like the Ashe on Hanamura because, again, small choke, spam damage, starting to sound like a stuck record, but I mean, it's a really big part of this map.
It is pretty much one of the defining features of this map, this first point, especially, and it looks like the teams just going to move towards each other now. Can they find the early picks that they need to on the side of 7-Eleven? Mito going to go for a long flank around the back here. Is he all by himself? He doesn't seem to have a mercy with him. I think Shadows got caught in the doorway, and I go back to fetch him here. This Colby Ginger is on this Widowmaker, going to look to put a bit of pressure on Soul Eater and maybe find Grant Hines if he can. Oh, just barely missing that shot onto Soul Eater, but Vertigo going down is a big old problemo, and he's going to follow that up with a kill onto Grant Hines. So once again, Mito's Pharah being the can opener that cracks open the GrantHindenburgs to get to the squishy insides. That's a 4K for the Pharah, and he's just going to secure them a quick and easy first point cap.
To the GrantHindenburg players, I just want to say, I feel your pain. I have had to play against Mito's Pharah. I understand. It sucks, but he does not, evidently.
No,
I mean, he's such a good Pharah. He gets so much value in the most ridiculous places, taking down Vertigo, taking down Grant Hines, who's meant to be his big counter. And now we got 2 ticks to gain, and we got 5.5 minutes to make it happen. Some swap-ups did not happen. We're keeping the same composition, hoping that it's going to work out a little bit better this time around, but no ultimates really to work with. Oh! Oh, did we lose Sun?
I'm muted. I'm back. Don't worry. Ah, Kovaginja got a kill, but it's all regular kill feed for the most part as the GrantHindenburgs secure themselves their first teamfight win of the defense.
And this has been your retrospective play-by-play brought to you by Sun Phoenix. Don't worry, you got like 5 more minutes.
Just talk, okay? Just say what you gotta say. I'm gonna throw shade.
That's what I wanted to say, okay? The other thing I need to say, Mito coming in with a barrage. Oh my goodness, taking out the other side of the map. This is the opportunity. This is the opening. This could be where they make it happen.
This could be the end of the Pride Cup, but Mito finding his way into the grave there. Sully with a great bubble to prevent him from going down, but Colby Ginger gonna get a return kill on the Pharaoh, so nobody in the sky until one of them is brought back. Colby Ginger with a great pick, but now Sully recognizes the problem and is gonna go try and get rid of Colby Ginger. He doesn't commit though. He needs to get on point to buy him his team time to come back in with the respawn advantage that they have, but he's dropping low. He's got no more primal rage, and they don't have a lot of space left to work with here in terms of ticks. There's a ball on the point now, but he's not able to get really movement. Oh no, Vertigo coming back in and getting earth-shattered straight away, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is likely to be it as the GrantHindenburgs muster up the last strings of their defense. That direct hit getting rid of Soul Eater with great impressive play, and it's just laid left in. Both supports now coming back in, and a ball committed. Maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe there is something in it. Well, the GrantHindenburgs on their last legs, but they haven't dealt with Mito, but maybe Bob's going to be the hero that they need. No, not quite going down as Colby Ginja finds the kill onto Slade. Resurrection onto Babs, and it's just the ball left on the point. There's a monkey there as well, but they're not going to survive for very long, especially with that kind of shadow coming out from Darkstar. Vertigo's back in the mix. Slade back in the mix as well, and that group of point might buy them enough space to get a few more bodies into the point. The May doesn't get on, and with that, 7-11 are gonna secure themselves a victory in this map, and of course, a victory in the Pride Cup.
That Mito Raj, I'm telling you, just that last little bit to cinch the win at the end there. I gotta hand it to the GrantHindenburgs. I mean, they did so well trying to stall that out for as long as they could. They brought out every stall hero they could think of. The Wrecking Ball, the Doomfist, the Lucio. They really put everything that they could into it. But that early pick off from Mito onto Vertigo, I cannot stress how much value that gave the Sevren on that final attack. That was the go button. And you'll probably find Mito was just like, so Mercy's dead, and they're like, cool, let's go. And everybody just starts funneling through that small choke point there, and there wasn't too much damage for them to contend with either. They just stood fast behind Reinhardt's shield, pushed forward. They knew they didn't have a Mercy available to them, so any damage that they did, it was going to be difficult to try and heal that up with just the one support player. They push through onto point. They know that they have the enemy team in a corner and immediately take control. This was a fantastic performance from the Sevren. Unfortunately, the GrantHindenburgs did their best. They put their all in, and they put up a really good showing, but it just wasn't enough.
And you know they had to work really hard to get to the finals in the first place, putting away a lot of really good teams. And neither of these teams were undefeated coming into this, so both teams had something to prove. But at the end of the day, 7-11 just too strong, too dominant. We saw their match against Need for Feed, a team that was undefeated until they came up against 7-11, and they dominated them. And it's more of the same here. Mito, Sevren, Darkstar, Babs, Colby Ginja. No, I'm reading both teams. Am I? Yeah, Darkstar, Babs, Mito, Colby Ginja, aka Sevren, aka Colby Ginja, which is the actual name. Asterix and Shadows putting up a great performance here in the Pride Cup. Now, no worry, you know what you gotta do. Before we end proceedings today, you gotta tell us who is your man of the match. And let's be honest, there's only one pick here.
It's Grant Hines, isn't it? No, I'm kidding.
You can pick whoever you like.
You know what?
I know who I would pick.
Do you know what? Special mention to Grant Hines, who is a solo queue player and who he really did his best, having never played on a team in any sort of competitive environment, but he threw his hat in the ring for a good cause. You know what? You get my special mention, man of the match, but the actual man of the match, Mito.
Can't argue with that. Not going to do anything controversial here.
You know, that just. It'd be like that. You know what? Special mention just laid on King's Row. That Lucio, top tier, my dude. Top
Special
tier.
mention to Bubbles on Hanamura as well. Secured them that first point. A stand-up performer on Lee Zhang Tower as well. So a lot of players showing up here. You know, you can't speak about Mito without speaking about Sevren these days. He put in a great performance as well. And Sully, also doing a great job. And we haven't mentioned the sports. Let's mention everybody. Vertigo, you mentioned Slade, Asterisk Shadows. All of them did so well this match. But unfortunately, only one team can walk away with the W, and that is 7-Eleven. So we're going to try and get Mito in here for some conversation. We'll have to wait and see. I'll let
A little bit of conversation.
Mito's name is People Riot Percy, I believe. Something dumb like that.
Something dumb like that.
Yeah, there he is. That's not.
Mito, apparently you have a dumb name. I'm just relaying. Don't shoot the messenger. It wasn't me. It was Sun. Blame him.
Yeah, I mean, look at his name. That's not a dumb name?
But it's like Pepe Laugh. Pepe Laugh.
Okay, sure.
Oh,
Anyways,
I was being personally attacked.
Hey?
I thought I was being personally attacked for my name decision.
Oh, you were being personally attacked.
But I didn't make my name, so you can blame. I think it's Blur. I think we blame Blur for my
Oh,
name.
really? Okay, I'll put that under the list of infractions Blur's made.
Yeah, I think you need the admin roll of shame, but yeah.
We can sort that out for sure. Actually, I don't think we can because the manager role is above all of the other roles. Anyways, enough of that. First off, congratulations for winning the Pride Cup in dominant fashion and for being our player of the match. How are you feeling?
Feeling pretty happy. It was a good run. Had a good team. It was really fun playing. First, really good opposition. It was really close, and I feel like I got slept many times, but it was really good.
You know what? After the hard work that you put in, I think those were some well-deserved naps.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So, Sam, questions from you.
Just curiosity, did you and well, actually, yeah, you and Sevren, did you guys join as a duo, or did it just like turn out that way that you wound up on the same team?
It was a trio with Shadows as well. We needed to make sure we had a Bucket Mercy as well.
Oh yeah, you got to make sure that you've got your pocket.
Yeah.
Smart as a Pharaoh player, you got to make sure that you've got that mercy. Someone you trust. I feel you. I feel that.
Also for Sevren's Ash. Also Sevren's Ash needs it.
And who came up with the team name?
I think Asterix came up with the final name. It was somewhere along the line. I don't think Sevren took part in it, but I don't think he mattered because he enjoyed the name.
Okay.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
Yeah, if there are people named, I mean, I was on a team that wasn't named after me, but that I shared a name with for a long time. So I know it feels nice, but it is very confusing to cast. So looking at this match today, you guys obviously absolutely dominated the GrantHindenburgs, but what were you expecting coming into this? You spoke a little bit how you did some homework for your previous match. Did you do homework here, or did you kind of just come into it winging it, and were you expecting to perform as well as you did?
I think after, because we lost to Lunatic Hello yesterday, and the GrantHindenburgs beat them, so I think we were definitely not underestimating them because they're a really strong team. I mean, they have really good players, and so I know they're also playing really well together, and they made it through to the finals. So I think we did check out Grant's stream a little bit after our game, just to make sure that we knew what we were up against, and then we tried to play from there. First map was a bit rough, and then getting rolled on first attack on King's Row was a big wake up, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that C9 feel though?
Yeah, that was interesting. I was contemplating barraging the people in point to C9, and then they just walked off.
They just C9 all by themselves.
Yeah. I wasn't sure about that.
Oh my gosh, that is funny.
Oh, shoot, I had a question and I seem to have lost it.
Well, you better find it quickly. So
Yeah, I'm
let's look back just a little bit here over the course of this tournament. Which was your favorite team to play against? Which was your favorite match?
I think our favorite
You
match
can
was
remember.
the first one against Team Angang. That was playing against Aquatic is crazy on his Ash. He's actually insane. I think that was probably the best one.
Yeah, we actually covered that one, Blur and myself, and that was the aquatic show 100%. You guys had
Yeah.
to really pull something
Put
out. of the deep
five
to
people
win that
into
one.
him just to win one fight.
Yeah. Very, very impressive play for the 2CP hit scan player. So, Nauri, did you remember your question?
I did not.
Oh, that is a shame. So I think that'll about bring us to the close of proceedings here. Thanks so much to everybody who joined us for the Pride Cup, all the players who took part. We had 60 players taking part, 10 teams. Thanks to all of you for making it nice and smooth. Big thanks to all of my casters as well, myself first, top of the list. Blur also put in a lot of work this weekend. Sam, yourself, and Cloudburst. Of course, Altruism, we can't forget about them. Thank you so much for giving us all your energy as I'm falling out of frame again. Then I have to say a huge thanks, of course, to I have to say a huge thanks to Peach and Emily. They were the ones who put most of the effort from the admin team into making this whole Pride Cup month or Pride Month a reality. The streamer spotlight, all those kinds of things. That was all of their hard work. So from everyone in the community, I think I can speak on behalf of them. Thanks so much to you guys for putting together this wonderful initiative and highlighting some members of the community or some groups that are often forgotten about or worse, actually. So big thanks to you, big thanks to Em and Peach as well for putting on the Pride Cup, and Em especially working extremely hard on making sure we had subs for everyone and all the kind of back end adminning stuff that is quite time consuming, and Peach for handling all of the production this weekend and doing all of the overlays and all that stuff. So thanks so much. I think I've hit everybody. Thanks to my admins as well on COWSA for all the work you put in. I love you guys. And thanks to myself as a member of multiple of those groups, since nobody else is going to thank me. So thank
Thank you, son. God.
Thank you. No, Peach, keep it. Just stay where you
Son
are.
Peach says thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that as well. But big thanks, all jokes aside, a lot of people put a lot of work in, and so please give them all the follows on Twitter, give them the thanks, DM them, say what you've got to say, and they will appreciate it, I'm sure. And I think that about brings us to the end of things. Congratulations once again to Sevren 11 and the GrantHindenburgs, our runner-ups of the Pride Cup. And before we finally sign off here, let's pimp the socials, the most important part. PP Laugh, as you are known on Discord, Mito, aka what do you call yourself in game? What's the other account?
There's a few, but I think Hilarious or Camo.
Yeah, Hilarious is the one you were using today.
Yeah.
This week. Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Mito916.
Awesome.
That's pretty much it.
You're playing for ADG Snorlax?
Snorlax, yes.
Yeah, so hit them up on the Twitters as well. That is your team if you want to see more of Mito playing like a boss. Sevren on the team as well?
Yes, indeed.
So if you want to see those two playing, I believe they're playing on different roles though.
Yeah.
Or at least Sevren is. Sam, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Where can we find you on the internet?
At Nari Mizuki. I'm mostly on Twitter. This is something I don't actually generally mention. Most of my social media activity is on Twitter. You can find me in other places, but I'm not really that active. So if you want to follow me, I suggest you go with Twitter.
Awesome. That's where you can find her, Nora Mizuki. And I mentioned the Peach today at the Peach today on Twitter and Twitch, handling all our production and all that good stuff. If you like the overlays, not this one specifically, actually hilarity enough, but the ones we've been using throughout the weekend before this, that was all of his creation. And of course, Emily is at Space Pandem, I believe, on Twitter as well. If you want to hit her up and give her some thanks for the lovely week and month of action that we've had. So I think that about sums it up. Well done to all the players, and we'll see you guys for some Overwatch, some competitive Overwatch, if this is a whet your appetite and you're looking forward to that. The 80k Overwatch tournament starts up again next week and will run for the 4 weeks after that. So you'll get to see all these players again, but playing in their main teams, playing in their homes, so to speak. So it should be a lot of fun. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much. I gotta do a dab though. Somebody asked. Yeah, Sam.
There you have it, boys.
That will sign us off for good. You guys should be happy with that now. We'll see you next time.
Bye.